Hello there. British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak has inherited a heavy legacy from his predecessors, so to speak. The Tories' unresolved problems will stay with him for the remainder of his term, as long as it may be. Journalists followed the Conservative General Secretary Nadhim Zahawi and former Chancellor of the Exchequer to his car early Tuesday morning. They want to know if he's going to resign. And he leaves this question unanswered, slips into his car and just drives away when the journalists want to talk to him. However, many have long since written him off. He's done for, is what a former Conservative minister reportedly said. The British tabloid Daily Star, which kept a head of letters in its editorial office during the tenure of ex-Prime Minister Liz Truss in September and also October last year, in order to compare humorously who lasted longer, completely forgone going to the local greengrocer. I immediately recognized the thing. It's already clear how this will end for Zahawi, they headlined on Tuesday. Prime Minister Rishi Sunak, who promised change, integrity and more honesty and transparency at the beginning of his term in office, is once again confronted with a real scandal in his own ranks, and I talked about this in another video already. Because Zahawi is said to have paid a fine to the tax authority HMRC during his time as finance minister last summer, or Chancellor of the Exchequer. And this despite the fact that he had publicly denied at the time that he had negotiated with the authorities to settle a multi-million pound affair. And experts emphasize now that he lied. Sunak still refused this week to remove him from his position. He referred the case to the Ethics Committee. The opposition interprets this as weakness. Everyone knows it's wrong that Zahawi has not been able to sort out his tax affairs, even though he was in charge of the agency responsible for this. That was said by Labour leader Keir Starmer. Sunak has inherited the proverbial poisoned chalice, explains Tim Bale. He's a political scientist at Queen Mary University. Johnson and Truss left the party directionless and deeply divided, he said. They are difficult to lead. And Sophie Stowers of the think tank UK in a Changing Europe emphasizes a lot of things for which he now has to take responsibility actually happened before he came into office. Cracking down is difficult because the party is not self-contained and he has to satisfy very many different groups. Sunak should have fired Zahawi to gain favor with the British, he says. With a harsh reaction to a minister, however, he always risks a rebellion from the backbenchers. However, the experts consider it unlikely that Sunak will resign before the next parliamentary elections, which are scheduled to take place in January 2025 at the very latest. After all, there isn't much time left until then, and another change at the top is therefore not advisable, says Stowers, although a lot was not advisable what the Tories did anyway. That is also clear to the party's rebellious backbenchers. Bale likens Sunak's strategy to that of a ship's captain trying to stay on course. As long as the crew doesn't mutiny, he should survive until the next general election, he says. Well, in view of the economic situation and because of the many scandals, however, the Tories expect a catastrophic result when the people finally go to the polls. He was made captain in a perfect storm. One person who is also shaking the ship is ex-Prime Minister Boris Johnson. Last weekend, he traveled to Kiev to meet Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky again. They sat facing each other with the Union Jack visible behind them. He gave the impression of representing the British government. That's a clever move, said Stowers. Despite Johnson's efforts to appear positive, she thinks his comeback is unlikely, though, because of the many scandals and because he is still being investigated. Tory donor Richard Sharp is said to have helped the ex-PM get a loan of about £800,000. And shortly thereafter, Johnson proposed Sharp for the post of the BBC chairman. You might have seen my video on this. Bale says Johnson will not give up hope of a comeback still. But the polls strongly suggest the public is happy to finally be rid of him. And not only the public, although, well, for us commentators, it's always a lot of material when he shows his head. And but the Kiev thing was really a clever one again. But no, I never said Johnson doesn't know how to play the public. But he'd made one mistake too many. But the shelf life of Rishi Sunak, well, we know the Tories and we know the ERG and we know the extreme right wing. I'm not so sure that he's the one running in the 2024-25 general election. I'll see you in my next video. I'll be back.